Lou, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Eli, thanks for having me here.
So, question one, what the heck is Votifi?
Votifi is a mobile-based polling company that sits on top of a political social network where we take the answers you give us to the questions we give you and help you build out a peer-to-peer network of politically interested people.
Okay, take me through a use case. Obviously, huge presidential election coming up this year. So how would I work in getting plugged into Votifi?
So you'd come in, you'd find us either online or through a story like this, and you'd come to the site, you'd register, you could download the app, you can connect through Facebook, and you start taking a bunch of questions where we help you simplify your access to political content and figure out where you stand on the issues. It's a pretty complicated political landscape that we have. None of us are purely red or blue. We tend to be red on some issues and purple on others. And so you answer the questions we give you. We then start curating news content for you to make your life a little bit easier every day, to give you stories from both the right, left, and middle on the issues that matter to you. And then once we get all that information, we mix it all up in the back, pop it into our algorithm, and we develop a profile on you, which shows you where you stand in a graded scale. We start connecting you with like-minded people to discuss the issues with, and with opposing-minded people to debate the issues with.
So the first and most obvious question is, why in the heck, you're a smart guy, why in the heck would you get involved in politics of all industries in the world?
I was doing a lot of other stuff, and I guess you've been talking to my wife a lot. It's actually pretty funny, Eli. I was a practicing lawyer. I had my own law firm for 14 years. Had a really rewarding practice, worked with a lot of great people in a lot of great industries. I got bit by the political bug back in 1972 when my uncle used to take me campaigning on presidential campaigns, and we'd leaflet through the mean streets of Providence, Rhode Island. And every campaign that my uncle would go out and work on, he'd call my mom and dad, and they'd say, go take Lewis. And we'd go out, and I had my little straw hat, and I handed out leaflets, and I got my campaign T-shirt and my bumper sticker, and I was hooked. And I've always been involved in politics, and I've always had a little bit of a complicated relationship with the party system. I'm a believer in the two-party system, but I've never fit neatly within it. I'm an issue guy. And then in 2008, I came up with this idea to start a mobile phone-based polling company. And as time went on and we started pushing out the idea with my co-founders, we all realized that in 2010, the time was now.
So it seems to me that what you're trying to create here is a more nuanced view of politics. That's a tough sell today. I mean, and most of the stuff we're consuming in the media is really sort of polarized. Is it an uphill battle?
Well, I think, we're trying to sell nuance, but what we're also trying to give people, you have to look back to where the country was in 2008 when I came up with this idea to get a real sense of what's going on. So if you take yourself back to September of 2008, there was no Tea Party, there was no Occupy, believe it or not, there was no iPad, and the BlackBerry was the dominant smartphone. And those
were good times.
You need a minute there? And so that was the political landscape. And in addition to that, the way the polling industry works is, for the most part, they have a robo-dialing call center that calls 40,000 people to get 1,200 people to answer their landline phone and give them their feedback on an issue. Me personally, I carry a 202 cell phone. I live in, which is a DC cell phone. I live in a 301 area code, which is Bethesda, Maryland. I'm a registered Republican who sits on 3 Democratic finance committees, and no one knows how I vote. No one knows my opinion on the issues. So rather than just nuance, what we're giving the American public an opportunity to do is to connect with politics in the palm of their hand. With mobile phone penetration increasing at a rapid rate, and we've all seen the smartphone penetration, and now tablets are outselling computers, this is the best way to create a realistic feedback loop for politicians to hear what we want them to hear.
Clearly, one of the big questions you're going to have is the privacy issue. So are you guys a data company? Are you selling the data? Are you taking the data? Are you making it anonymous?
So we are a data company, but we don't cookie, tag, or drop tokens on you to follow you when you go out onto the internet. The only thing we do on you is we build for you a what they call in the trade a longitudinal, so an overtime profile on you, much like you have at Netflix or Amazon.com or even at OkCupid or Match.com. We use the questions to build your profile. We don't sell it to advertisers. We don't have advertisers on the site. It's an opt-in network where your participation helps hone your views, much like the more movies you watch on Netflix, the better the recommendation engine. Our business model is data selling in an anonymized fashion. We're not going to say, hey, Chris lives here, so go hit him with this ad. But we are going to say that this particular demographic of people think a certain way. And in the polling space, we're going to give them, you sign an agreement to say, I'll take polls, but you don't have to. So we're not going to call you. We send you a text message or an email and say, hey, Chris, we've got a poll. Would you like to take it? If you take it, great. So far to date, we average about 65% complete rates on our polls as opposed to 3% for landline polls.
You guys, you're a nonpartisan company, Republican-leaning, Democratic-leaning?
We're nonpartisan, devoutly so, much to the consternation of the guys who are on both sides of the aisle. There are usually some pretty good disagreements about what our blog should look like and how the questions should be read.
So if I'm a candidate, am I purchasing and if so, selling to both sides of a race?
Yeah. We haven't yet gotten involved where we're on both sides of a race, but theoretically speaking, we are data and we're access, and so we don't replace your political strategist. If you want to have your political strategist and your pollster develop the questions, we can implement that for you. And what's really interesting is there's this big movement there's this big theme that's taking place in politics, which is how do you reach the influential voter? And the larger question also becomes, how do you reach the influenceable voter? How do you find those people that are out there when they're living in Facebook, when they're living in Twitter, when they're not answering their emails all the time, when they're carrying a 312 cell phone and they now live in Dallas, or they're carrying a 303 and they're now living in LA. How do you find these people, and how do those people get found by the politicians? So we'll work with two campaigns if they ask us. We're trying hard to not have to pick a side, because we think that the overall aggregation of the data and the aggregation of the community helps unlock the potential for the American citizen to find agreement on the issues that matter to them. Imagine for a moment you're a left-leaning guy, I'm a right-leaning guy, and we're both passionate about the environment. Well, if we can find commonality on that, notwithstanding the fact that you're living out in Colorado and I'm here in Maryland, we can then start building bridges even if we disagree on the budget solutions to help the environment.
So that's awesome. I think, and this is the real heart of what I wanted to talk to you about today, which is you're in a space which is incredibly ripe for disruption. I mean, you essentially, people in politics are just traditionally very slow to adopt new technology. So you now have this opportunity to come in and apply a really, really cool new technology in. Tell me about that concept. Tell me about how it feels to come in and try to basically sell the internet in 1997.
Well, I'd be lying to you if it wasn't the most exciting thing that gets me out of bed every morning. It's a lot of fun for both me and the team to be able to be involved in a for-profit business, not that they're building any statues to us yet, that's actually trying to do a little bit of good and try to help the political process. And I think that we're at another one of these inflection points with the American political system where we need to figure out a way to create more engagement, not less. Any talking is good talking. How does it feel to be at the front end of disruption in an industry like this? It's pretty darn exciting. And you have to have some pretty thick skin because there are a lot of people that tell you, no, it can't be done. More people tell you, no, it can't be done than tell you, yes, it can be done. The good news is I've been punched in the face before, and so it doesn't really hurt that much anymore. And so, I think that it's a little bit of a battle. But when people start seeing the fuel gauge and the political profile and start getting a sense of unlocking this potential of the American little d Democrat and the American citizen, it starts clicking. And so we've only had 3 people tell us it was a stupid idea.
So let's talk about this notion of disruption a little bit. You're making waves. And so only 2 people told you it was stupid, but yet you're trying to unseat a lot of people that are rooted in politics. A lot of these polling companies make a lot of money. So how are you going in there and trying to root out what is a fairly well-cemented group of businesses?
Well, I mean, the threshold issue is we're trying to help them. I mean, in reality, we're trying to provide for them at this point in time a resource. You've got, at the present time, approximately 32% of the American homes don't have a landline at all. About 40% of the American homes are what's considered cell phone mostly, like the home that my wife Amy and I live in. Millennials, kids between the age of 18 and 29, 7% of them have landlines. Okay? 56% of minorities connect to the internet wirelessly. So these trend lines are there, and pollsters realize it. The problem that they have, frankly, is they're in the middle of the campaign cycle. These guys are spending every waking moment trying to figure out how to get their candidates the best data that they can to win their races. And so as they're fighting for that, they don't have the resources, the bandwidth to deploy to say, oh my God, I've got this problem out here where Americans are getting rid of 700,000 landlines a month. How do I solve it? So we go to them and we try to collaborate with them to help them solve the problem. I was talking with a pollster the other day because you get into these issues of randomness and sample bias and representative samples. And the key thing for these statisticians is you just have to know your bias. And then once you know your bias, you can figure out how to formulate your data after that. And so that's what we're trying to do at the outset, is to help them. And then the disruptive effect is also for politicians, because imagine them actually being held accountable in real time by the American population that's communicating to each other about what they think is right or wrong.
So how is it that you go out and recruit the average voter? So that, how do you find those users? And if I'm a kind of a silent voter, not somebody that's been too involved in the politics in the past, how do you pull those people into the process?
I'd like to say we had a bake sale, but that's not really that's a lot of cookies. So the first is right now, to be bluntly honest, it's a little bit of hand-to-hand combat. So we haven't done our big search engine no big SEO campaign. We haven't bought banner ads yet. We haven't done any of the advertising that we're going to need to get out to really try to build that audience because of where we are in our life cycle as a company. We launched last June 14th on Flag Day. We got all the bugs out of the system. November, we started taking in client engagements where we were doing community insight analysis on members of organizations for a particular group, like the Environmental Working Group has 1 million people, so we help them better understand how to friend raise and fundraise. And then we were down at South by Southwest in March and got a sense of where everybody positioned us. And one of the things we realized coming out of that was we needed to improve our Facebook strategy. So we've been spending time getting our Facebook strategy improved. That should be done probably again by June 14th. I like these iconic American holidays. We'll probably do something on July 4th. We did something on March 9th, which was National Meatball Day. We always want to honor that.
That's huge. It's huge. You cannot miss National Meatball Day.
It's a big day.
It's a big day.
It's a big day. And so one of the things that we're going to do is frankly try to use by bulk advertising, both through Facebook and banner ads, ask a provocative or an evocative question, get people to join. We'll probably run some contests to win a free Lightro camera or win an iPad. We're going to rely a little bit upon some community voter engagement groups, some voter organization groups that we're talking to. We've had some really great discussions preliminarily with other startups. We've talked to groups like AARP, and we can give folks a widget, a polling widget that sits on their site that allows them to engage their members, and then we drive traffic back our way. So we've got to hit multiple channels before we get that network effect and that hockey stick moment. And we wanted to make sure that we could do certain things the right way before we got there. We didn't want to sort of send out a bunch of invitations and then have nobody show up or the doors were closed when they got here. And we think now with the mobile strategy that we're developing, the ad strategy that we're developing, Facebook, partnerships, and then driving other activity by providing a service for nonprofits and political parties that starting in June, mid-June, we'll be able to drive a significant amount of users to the site.
If you're talking to somebody who's thinking about starting a company in a space like politics, where it's tough, it's entrenched, it's tough to enter into, particularly if you don't have a background coming directly out of a political campaign, what kind of advice do you give for somebody who's looking to disrupt a big market like you're looking to do?
I was fortunate enough to be at a cocktail party the other day, and David Rubenstein, one of the founders of the Carlyle Group, happened to be there. And for those who don't pay attention, David Rubenstein was a kid from the wrong side of the tracks in Baltimore, really bright lawyer, he was a partner in a law firm in Washington, D.C., and he had this idea to start this private equity shop called the Carlyle Group, which is now getting ready to file their IPO right around the same time as Facebook. And David, for Mr. Rubenstein, for guys like me who live in and around D.C., is a lot more of a rock star than Axl Rose ever could have been.
Nobody was bigger than Axl, Lou. Nobody.
Don't tell Slash that.
Right? Okay, I'll stipulate that maybe in 2012.
And so I was talking to him, and I said, "Do you have any advice?" And he said, "Don't take no for an answer." He said, everybody's going to tell you no, it can't be done. But if you believe in it and you think it's the right play, and again, that's a tough one, because I think the hardest thing for every entrepreneur to really understand is, where are the holes in my business plan? Am I a genius or am I a lunatic? Is there really a need for this product out there? And for all the people that tell me no, are they right? And it's really hard to make sure that you don't believe your own BS. And so when Mr. Rubenstein said, "Don't take no for an answer," I think what he was saying was really, look, you gotta always check in with yourself and see, are you making traction? Is there a there? If your goal is to sell a service, are you selling it? Are you meeting your milestones? We've all been to these pitch competitions where you look over at the other guy's business and you say, "Oh my God, why would anybody devote their time for this? Why would they dip into their 401k for this? Why would they quit their job as an X, Y, or Z to do this?" But don't take no. I mean, and the other thing I would say is, if you're going to do it, you got to go all in. I mean, you hate to sound cliched, but if you're not willing to put it out there every single day and show people that you're believing in your company, then your co-founders, your employees, your customers, and dare I say any funder that ever would dare to give you money won't do it unless you've either got a demonstrated track record of being able to do it without going all in, but you got to be all in.
What do you want to see if you had a fast forward moment between, let's call this the next presidential cycle 4 years from now? What would you imagine the Votifi could be?
Well, in 2016, I'd love nothing more than to have at least 15,000 people in every congressional district in the United States tied into Votifi in the way that they feel most comfortable with whatever technology is going to be in place then, their mobile device, their tablet. I'd love to have at least that many people across all demographic, sociographic, psychographic lines on the site, engaging in politics, exchanging ideas, treating it as a laboratory for both local and national democracy, and fighting, exchanging. Dissonance isn't a bad thing. We're not about creating resonance. We're about creating dissonance. And if grassroots campaigns can get launched, if larger national issues can get resolved, we want to see Votifi by 2016 at the absolute latest as being a platform upon which the American voter can participate in that national election, and the elected officials have to watch it. They just have to come and they have to see it, and they have to see what's trending and see what's going on, and that's where they have to see America gut check them.
Do you want to be the platform that the next generation of political conversations happen?
That would be a really great place to sit, a place for the platform for discussion and connections, where you start finding and building relationships that otherwise wouldn't necessarily make all the sense in the world to you to get there.
I could think of no better place to stop than right there. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Best of luck with Votifi. Let us know how we can help.
Sign up for the site. Thanks.
Sign up for the site. Where do you find you?
You can find us at www.votifi.com. Download the app at your Apple store. It's free.
And how do people get in contact with you?
That's easy. Lou, L-O-U, at Votifi, VOTIFI.com. I don't get to them within an hour, but I try to respond to every single email I get.
Lou, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.